The information and suggestions given in this podcast should not be considered as clinical or medical advice. Consult with a physician before implementing any information provided on this podcast. Metabolic Radio.
Kind of in the jesting mood.
You're in the jesting mood?
That was just probably bad, so I'll try not to do that today.
So I think we need to talk about programming. Program design.
Let's talk
periodization. These are terms
C+.
that our people need to know about. C+? What?
Yeah.
Shane, you are so off topic.
No, it's not off topic. That's programming. C+ is where you do coding.
Okay. So
it has nothing to do with this, mind you, but it is on topic. It's just not the one you want. Like I said, focus.
Exercise program.
All right, we'll go back. We'll get back in this.
Because I get a lot of questions from people about. So the most common question I get is, or one of the most common questions I guess I get is, what exercises should I be doing? And I often I kind of cringe a little bit when people ask me that, because even though that is like an essential part and component of the programming, hence why we talked about the foundational exercises in the last episode, or one of our past episodes, is because, you have to know that you're doing the right and proper and effective exercises for your goals and performing them safely. But rather than just changing from going to and from different exercises, that doesn't really change the structure and design of your workout. You're just changing exercises, mm-hmm. right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and the difference between just doing an exercise and doing programs that you're setting up is you're not bouncing around the gym just doing haphazard stuff.
Yeah.
And you're not getting effect. You're not getting a good effect. It's even the wrong way to say it. You're not getting an optimal effect if you bounce around in the gym.
Yeah, and I mean, 'cause like I said, it's just one aspect of the program that you're following, or that you're either doing for yourself or designing yourself if you are designing it.
And this is actually something I think we might differ a little bit in.
Oh yeah, this will be interesting because I'm
curious to know your perspective on why you set up stuff the way you do.
So I asked you that question when I texted you the other day,
mm-hmm.
About what would your perspective be with my current goals? What would you program design? And so you gave me some interesting advice and tips for programming that I wouldn't have necessarily done myself. And that's exactly why I texted you, is because I wanted to get an outside perspective. Right. I wanted to get outside of my own head and get a third party who's knowledgeable looking at what I'm doing and what my goals are and giving me advice on that.
So I called somebody. Just kidding. Man, I am on one today. Anyway.
So what are the other aspects that people should be thinking about when it comes to exercise programming? The other factors, right?
You want to take into consideration what your focus is on, your time length. You want to look at how you stage them, how you set up your routine, what exercises come before other exercises for, like I said, for optimal effect. And I mean, that's basic program. That's what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. So that's, like I said, I'm curious to know what your view is on that.
So what I usually do to help educate people on starting to learn program design, because I still feel like I have a lot to learn when it comes to program design. I know a lot about it, and I definitely implement it. But when it comes different clients. With different goals and that kind of thing, the way that you phase their workouts and that you design them varies a lot, just depending on the goals. But things that I start to educate people on are things they don't normally think about when they're doing an exercise. So I say, okay, given you're doing exercises, regardless of what those are, now we're going to look at how fast or slow are you performing each repetition.
Absolutely, that's
so
part of programming.
Tempo is huge.
Yep.
Are you doing 4, 5, 6 seconds down as the muscle stretches and doing the same thing back up? Are you going 1 second down, 1 second up? Are you going slow down and fast up? Those kind of things. Are you actually counting out tempo? There's a lot of benefits and there's a lot of different reactions that happen in the body when you do different tempos. I talk about rest periods, because how fast, how quick or long your rest periods are. Yeah, it affects recovery. It affects hormones. It affects the regeneration of ATP energy. Those kind of things. I talk to them about supersets, or doing exercises back to back, or doing things in a circuit fashion, what that does, and or doing set rest protocol where you just do an exercise and then you rest.
We'll be covering that today for sure, because that's, like I said, I want to understand why you do it. I'm curious.
Why I do supersets?
Why you set your program up the way you do. So that's why I'm kind of wondering.
Ask me specifically.
Well, I'm just
what
saying,
you mean.
How if you were designing, since in my opinion, not talking about anybody specifically, but any podcast that I've listened to, I've really never heard them give a good definitive on how they design a program.
Mm-hmm.
They talk around it.
Okay.
They talk around it. And I'm not hacking it, because that's fine. I have no issue with that. But I kind of want to cover that, because I think that's not crucial, but that's kind of a key element to actually bang for the buck in the gym. So if you were setting up a program, why do you set it up the way that you do?
So, okay, we'll do it based off of my population I work with, which is the average person.
Just do it. Just set up a program.
Yeah. So what I usually do is I'm looking at it in a few different phases, meaning that a phase is going to be anywhere from...
Let's shrink it. Make this easier on you. Let's just go with... Because phases is just the beginning. You're doing a program, then you're going to modify it to another program, then you're going to modify another. That's the changes in phases, right? Mm-hmm. So take one phase, and why do you set up the program the way you do? Why do you put the exercises in the fashion that you do?
Like we talked about in the foundational
sort of
exercise episode?
No different. I mean, when they're working out, because you're actually making a real program now. You're not just taking... Because we were just more or less discussing specific exercise at that point. When you actually take and you start this one to this one to this one to this one to this one, I understand.
So you're saying in the single workout?
Yes, we're talking about.
Oh, see, I thought you were talking about the.
No, not.
See, I'm talking about the whole design,
which I get, and I'm not worried about that yet. So
okay.
Like I said, I want to see where our differences are, because I think we have some of this, and so I'm curious.
Well, so what Shane's talking about is the difference between looking at something like I was about to describe an entire program, which is it's called periodization,
yes,
where you look at complex. How you do the phases of different workouts, and I do want to cover that today,
which is fine.
But what you're talking about is how do I structure an individual workout and why? So I stick with the biggest movements first, meaning that if I'm doing a compound lift like a squat or a deadlift or something that's multi-joint, that's going to activate the largest amount of muscle groups or be the largest amount of volume of weight lifted on an exercise, I start with that first, because I don't want... If I leave that for later in the workout or last, then I get the client tired with all the other exercises before that. If I get...
and we'll come back to this in this episode too, because this is something else I want to talk about.
Well, we're talking about it right now.
No, I know, in more depth, because I want to talk about using that in a different way in programming.
Okay, so that's how I structure it. Unless I do where I train is a private space where I share space with multiple trainers. So obviously, if something's not available, I have to modify. And that's one thing that you want to consider when you're doing program design is you're gonna go to the gym. And you're not always going to have the same thing available. So you're going to have to know, okay, I was planning on squats. That's all taken today. What's another movement that I can do?
That's what I was going to say. That's where knowing exercises is a big deal.
So you're right. That's where having an arsenal of knowledge in terms of multiple exercises or movements for certain muscle groups or a certain effect is good. Or that might totally change your routine. You might say, I'm going to go in and I'm going to focus on a lot of pushing movements where I'm extending a lot of my limbs. I'm extending my hips. I'm doing squats. I'm doing bench press. And all those things might be taken. And you might switch it and say, okay, I'm going to have to do a pulling day where I'm pulling weight towards me because I can do chin-ups and I can do deadlifts and those kind of things.
Well, let's make this even simpler. So if you were throwing together a program for me right now, for 4 weeks.
What do you want to do?
Okay, so
it depends on the goal.
Yeah, and I'm looking to build strength and size.
You're looking to build strength and size, and you have the background that you do?
Yeah, no, you're talking to me. So yeah, just based on me.
So if you want to build strength and size,
because this way we can talk about how you form it. Because like I said, I think this is something that's glossed over, and I think that's why I think we should cover it in more detail.
Okay, so if you, let's say, given that you weren't doing any of this already, because I would first find out what you've been doing.
Of course.
Okay, but let's just say that you haven't been doing whatever I recommend. So you want to build strength and size. Mm-hmm. So I would focus on making sure that you're, and we'll also say that the diet is where it needs to be.
Of course, we're not talking about diet right now at all.
Yeah,
it's just exclusively the program for lifting.
So I would make sure you're incorporating all the foundational exercises that we talked about in our episode.
Set it up.
Which are
okay. Set up. We're setting this up for real. I'm
trying to do this.
I'm not running the program. I'm just saying I want to set the program up completely. So I want it in line because I want to see why you do it.
Okay, this is a single workout.
It's for a 4-week period.
Oh, for a 4-week period.
Or if you want, if it's going to be modified, if it's not going to be the same workout, which is what I would do for 4 weeks, then we'll shrink it to 1 day because I don't want to make it so we're going into it in more.
It's just going to take for 4 weeks.
Program
over 4 weeks, I would be systematically increasing your volume of weight lifted. So each week we would be focusing on increasing either by repetition or additional weight, so long as your form is okay.
Now, are you changing the exercises?
Not necessarily.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So to find out,
I want
to lay that out. That's what I'm saying. So that's why
I usually have a client do the same exercises, similar workouts with options to modify in the workout, while focusing on volume increasing for every 2 to 4 weeks, and then I totally revamp everything at that point. Okay. So if we were doing an individual workout, I would probably separate so you're not overwhelming your body. You wouldn't do all of the major lifts. Like I wouldn't have you do squats and bench and deadlift and pull-ups, like all the big stuff in one workout.
Right.
I would want it to be more full body, but not necessarily fatigue or challenge every muscle group. Because let's say you want to do 3 or 4 days in the gym. So we would set it up with a pull-based workout. I don't have to write it down.
No, I want you to.
Why?
Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
Come on.
He wants me to write it down as I'm talking.
Yeah.
So you would do every other day. You would lift a full body routine. That's too distracting. I can't think. So I'm serious.
You're good. Just keep going.
So you would alternate between pushing and pulling movements. So you'd have a day where you would do squats, bench press. You would do potentially weighted step ups. Like we talked about in the last episode, originally I would have recommended potentially lunges. You would do, if you're going to do some isolation movements, like single joint movements, you would do maybe skull crushers.
So squat, bench, and then what you do what?
Squat, bench, the weighted box steps or lunges like we talked about in one of the last episodes.
Okay.
I would have you do potentially weighted hip extensions or hip thrusters.
Okay.
And actually, that one would actually be after bench, but in terms of order, because it's a bigger movement.
Change the order.
Yeah, and then overhead barbell press or dumbbells.
This is the reason I wanted to write it down because I want to have an order.
Okay, and then tricep, some type of single tricep exercise that's an isolated movement just for that. So like a skull crusher, an overhead extension, which I actually don't like overhead extensions because it hurts my elbows. But so I do skull crushers.
We should work out together. That's one of my favorites.
Okay, or
it's called, another name for that's French press, but anyway.
Yeah, or a close grip. Tricep focused press. So you're laying down in bench press position, but you line the bar up more.
Which
near
one would
your
you choose the most?
More commonly,
right?
I would do the close grip.
This is based on me.
I do the close grip press because it is more compound because it does incorporate the shoulders versus an isolated, and that would be a workout. We would do, if you're focusing on strength, we'd focus on higher amounts of sets and low reps because you're focusing on strength. A little bit of size, so we'd be somewhere between 1 and 6 reps. We wouldn't be at least 4, depending on where you're at.
On all of them?
Maybe not on the triceps, on the single arm exercise. And then But that's a lot of volume right there. So we would pick a weight that you're not going to failure, but you're coming close.
Okay.
You might utilize failure as a tool on like one of the sets on each exercise, and that might even be a lot too. You might just utilize it on one exercise, one set for that day if you're really trying to push it.
Okay, you guys need to understand, I am absolutely putting him on the spot. He is not prepared for this. And this is so outside of his norm that is driving him nuts.
I normally sit down for an hour and write out one client's program structure, and he's putting me on the spot live doing it.
Yes, I am.
It's good. It helps me grow. Okay, so your point with me doing this would be, so there's one push-based or abduction-based workout. You have we'll talk.
So is this your allotment?
Yeah.
Okay. So is this daily or is this
that would be 1 to 2 times a week, and it wouldn't be back to back. You'd put at least 2 days of rest in between that. Now that doesn't mean you can't do another workout. You just have to focus on something different. So let's say that was Monday. Wednesday you could do a pull-based workout where
you're setting it up more push-pull.
Yeah.
Okay, so
if you notice, all those exercises
that's what I'm wondering.
Push-based exercises.
Right, that's what I was wondering. Okay.
So then, like, it's not to say that you couldn't do something that would also be related. Like let's say Tuesday, you could do, if you did this Monday, Tuesday, you could do something that would be more performance-oriented for strength. You could work on explosive movements, just come in and do some plyometrics. Okay. You could do some jump squats or some box jumps or something like that.
How would you incorporate that? Would you put that in the middle, the beginning?
I would put. Well, no, I'm saying bottom? A totally different workout.
Okay, so plyos are completely by itself.
I for this workout, yeah.
That's why I'm asking. Yeah. Like I said, this is about.
I'm not saying you can't do that.
No. Right. I'm just saying this is why I'm doing this, because, like I said, I want to break this down so that everybody understands why you set this up the way you do, and so when I explain what I do and the reason why I do, so on a separate, you can see the difference.
Yeah. So on a separate day, you could do something that was more oriented around performance, getting the mind muscle connection, getting explosive movements going with plyometrics on the Tuesday in between.
That's what I was going to say. Would you do it on a rest day?
That's what I'm saying. It's not on the same day. So the first workout we just described is Monday. We'll say we do some accessory movements, some performance things. This would be more of a lighter workout. This wouldn't be very weight-based or very much volume at all. You would do this on the in-between days, so that's a Tuesday. You could throw some core in there as well. You could throw core on the back end of that first workout if you wanted, but that's going to spend a lot of time in the gym with how much volume I just gave you. Now, Wednesday, you would do a pull-based.
Because you're talking time focus.
Yeah. Duration of time spent in the gym, which I try to keep my clients in the gym, depending on their fitness level, 45 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
90 minutes, if you're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, that's including warm-up and workout and cool-down or core or whatever. And then Wednesday would be like a heavy volume, just like we described for Monday, but it'd be for pull stuff. So it would probably go deadlift, barbell bent over row, pull-ups or chin-ups, and then potentially an upright row for shoulders. However, I've actually been looking into that and how that impinges the shoulder.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about actually ditching that exercise altogether out of my arsenal.
I'm not a hater of upright rows, but
you know what? Actually,
if you go high, it's
in
bad.
Replacement of that, I would do the face pull that you recommended a couple episodes ago. I would do face pulls instead of that, and then I would do a barbell bicep curl or potentially an alternating dumbbell curl. And in the exact same volume and set rep protocol as Monday's workout.
Right.
Now, on your third day, it depends on if you have muscle imbalances or like if you have the forward shoulders, if you have postural deviations, that kind of thing. You may want to put an emphasis on more pulls or more pushes, depending on that. Typically, for most people, it's usually more pulls is what they need. So your Friday workout might be a combination of things similar to Monday and Wednesday's workouts, or it might be another pull-based workout, which in that case, we would switch it, and Monday would be a heavy pull workout, and Wednesday would be your push, and Friday would be another pull.
And you just have it rotate every week.
Yeah. And then you could do these accessory things in between. Like I said, working on some plyometrics, some explosive power, some stretching, some range of motion on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. And if you didn't do core on your main Monday, Wednesday, Friday workouts, you would throw core in on your Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. I like to give people at least a day of rest, but I tell them to stay active. So I say no purposeful exercise, but physical activity is great. So just getting your movement up, you're going on a walk, you're going on a hike, you're playing a sport, something like that, just so that they're doing something active every single day, but they're not necessarily always lifting weights or always in the gym every day.
That makes sense.
So there's a basic rundown of a program.
Now, if I was going to sit down and I was going to program it, and here's the reasons why I would, okay? I work from biggest to smallest. It's not necessarily the movement. It's the muscle. So I would do
the size of the muscle.
Yes. Again, back to metabolic effect. I think.
Yeah.
So if I was setting it up, I'd do squats first, and I'm going to do full body. I'm going to do this based on
not a push pull.
Not a push pull. Okay. It's going to be a full body.
And that's not how I do everybody. But
no. And I'm not saying that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm doing this based on I'm setting this up more beginner based. We use me, and that doesn't make this completely fair for this, but I'm going to do it beginner based, and the way I would set it up for an average person. So I would start off, and I would do a big movement like a squat, because you're the strongest and you're hitting the hardest exercises.
Yeah.
So I would hit that. Then I would go to the next muscle group being the trapezius because of the overload area. So I would hit the traps. So
which are the...
upright rows.
No, I understand that, but just so people know what the trapezius muscle is.
Well, it attaches... I mean, I guess I could.
It's the upper shoulder.
I was going to use attachment points, but we don't want to go too detailed because I was going to
go detailed.
It attaches high on the cervical spine, and then it actually goes down to about. I want to say it's about T, thoracic spine 6. I think it is. Maybe it's 5.
But anyway, it's your upper back.
But it's your upper back.
It's your upper back on top of your shoulders.
So I would do something like either upright rows, which as long as you go low, it's not going to impinge it as deeply. If you go higher, the higher you go is where a lot of the impingement happens. And most people do upright rows high. They do them up to their chin, or they do up even higher to their nose.
Raising the bar to that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
And anytime you do that, the rotation of your arm is actually going to cause an impingement. That's I don't know if you've been watching like his YouTube channel. I guess it doesn't matter.
Is it the physical therapist?
Yes.
Yep. No, that's who I've been.
He's a champ.
Yep. He's got some really good content.
He really does.
That's what I'm talking about, actually. That I've looked into, and that's why I'm considering changing.
He's right on
doing upright rows.
You probably watched the episode on the 5 exercises that are bad. Yeah, that's a really good episode. Gosh, I wish I could remember his name because I'd give him a shout out. But anyhow, I'm not saying I would use it, but I would do at least shrugs because of how it hits. Now, there's different ways to do shrugs that people don't do. If you lean forward a little bit, you can actually get all the way from the top to the bottom. But you got to lean over and you got to pull it to the back. Yeah. Not up as much.
Yep.
But you can do it higher. You can do it bent. But both those I'd do trap, and then I'd go to lats. So I'd do either a bent row. I wouldn't do deadlifts because you're right. Putting those together is kind of harsh, especially for somebody who would be a beginner if this is a beginner program. So I do bent rows. I'd probably do dumbbell bent rows as opposed to barbell for this purpose. But because lats are such a big movement muscle, I would hit those. Then I would go from them. I would go to chest, bench press. Again, we're gonna do it basic. So bench press because of how it works, it hits too many muscles. And then from there I would go to either a military side lateral, rear lateral, depending on what they for shoulders. And then I would bounce off of that to a tricep exercise. And I like French press. I think it's actually a really good exercise as long as you're sitting in the right kind of seat. If you don't have something stabilizing your back, I hate them. It's not that they're not doable, but the weight ratio I want to go lower on if I do that. So I would go higher on it. I would want to have a back, a seat that's got a back that's about halfway up your back because that's the perfect setup for it. Yeah, support. And then I would go to probably an easy bar curl. Because of the placement of your arms. And then from that point, I would go to an abdominal workout. So I would either do planks, leg raises, basic crunches. Don't like them, but they're you can use them at this point. And then I would go from that point. I would go to calves. And the reason why I set mine up the way that I do is because I'm going from a muscle group that's going to have other muscles incorporated in it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have that affect the bigger muscles.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Is that
Right.
you wouldn't do curls before you do rows,
Right, and see,
or
that's the reason why I was wondering.
triceps before bench.
Right, and see, the reason why I wouldn't do it like this with the squat bench in combination is because the placement of it, I would put bench a little lower, and I would move any leg type exercises above it, with the exception of calves, because you're going to be standing.
So, so you're going to put all the leg things back to back.
I would do legs back to back. Unless I was well, even then I would still be doing legs back to back. So if I use more advanced techniques.
Now, so how do you feel about the fatigue building up? Like, let's say I'm fatigued from squats, and then I go right into hip thrusters after that, and
it's a rest factor. Because I would actually be giving, if I'm going heavy.
And I understand that can be beneficial.
Well,
right?
yeah, for sure. Because let's say you're doing hip thrusters first. We'll cover that now, as a matter of fact, since you brought that up. So I was saying that you might want to do it in a different order. And the reason why I would do it in a different order is if, like, say you have issues with your chest not getting hit correctly in bench press because your shoulders are so overdeveloped, or your triceps are taking over so much of the weight. Granted, that a lot of that's positioning. You're not pulling your scapula together in the back. When you're doing your bench, you're letting it float. It'll cause it to rotate in your shoulders more. But if you want to hit that, I might go into a fly. I might go into not as...
Yeah, but so you're talking about now doing modifications based off of what you need in the workout.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
like
how
I had a client...
That's when I would change that. And that's why I would change the order. That's why I said we need to cover that today in this. But
So I mean, it's good for the listeners to know that we're when you're following a workout protocol, whether you've designed it yourself or whether a trainer's designed it or it's a program that you just bought or something like that, you need to understand that it's fine to deviate.
For sure.
And so I mean, like I was training a client a couple weeks ago, and he was having this really awkward hip movement when he was squatting. So when we had warmed him up, we did a set. He had this weird hip movement. I said, okay, put the bar down. We just left it. I said, we'll come back to this, but we're going to go work on some hip things. And so what we did is we worked on getting his right gluteus to fire. Because he was just having a problem with that in the squat. So we went and we were doing some body weight hip extensions.
Muscle weakness.
Yeah, we did some body weight hip extensions. I had him do some other hip opening type exercises. And then, so I had him actually open it up and get it stretched. And then I actually had him start doing some things that were causing the muscle to fire and be recruited. Then we went into his squat. And it almost, I would say about 80% corrected the deviation.
Right.
And it was safe enough that we could continue the exercise. But so I taught him that concept that, look, if something's going wrong in your workout, go fix it and then come back to the main guidelines.
See, another thing you could do in a circumstance like that, as long as you have someone who understands the dynamics of the way the movement is,
but
they can drop the weight and use that too.
That too. The problem is people don't always understand what to do. If they're like, okay, barbell squat, I look up a video, I know what it is, and then they say, okay, crap, my hip is doing this weird thing, I have no idea what to do.
Right.
And so that's where it is hard for people to, in that same workout, know exactly what to go do, and that just comes with learning more exercises and time.
Well, that's true. It also, that's another reason why having a good trainer
to teach you that.
Yeah, to help you work through that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But that's why I was curious, because like I said, I have a very specific reason why I set things up, and if it deviates, usually it's after the beginning. Does that make sense? I'll lay it down. Here's your program, and then I will deviate it to the needs of the person as we figure it out. It's not that I won't just throw out one program for everybody, but then you can actually see where their weaknesses are. And so then I start to modify it and change it as we go.
Well, I always, whenever I meet with a client for the first time, I try to find where those weaknesses are.
Of course.
And that's like we talk about, a good trainer should do an actual assessment before and not just a fun workout to get the client motivated. They should assess the client and see, do you have this hip deviation or and I already knew that one client I worked with had that. It just was really bad that day.
It just stood out.
And
you'll have that anyway. I mean, that's natural.
Yeah. But then that way you can kind of more accurately program. So like if someone's listening right now and they know they have a shoulder issue, and they tore a rotator cuff and they a while ago, and they have limited range of motion or weakness or strength in it. They might want to plan on doing a specific type of warm up to make sure they don't continue to exacerbate the issue in their workout, and then during their workout incorporate some rehabilitative or range of motion or strengthening exercises just for that particular quadrant of their body. In addition to their main lifting and their main exercises.
Right.
It's totally separate from maybe a body composition goal. This is just getting their shoulder to work properly so it doesn't slow them down from being able to do other things.
Yeah, you can set a program up for almost anything. That's why I want to be more specific on me, because if we can take this and look at it.
And this was not taking into consideration any of your injuries, because you have like so many. I don't even know.
But you also know that I ignore 90% of them, so this wouldn't change this.
Shane's the kind of person sometimes with himself, not necessarily with clients, but with himself. When he starts feeling pain, he says, 2 more.
Okay, that's a story, and I will share that story since you had to throw that out there. I was
share
benching.
Your story, and then let's talk periodization.
I was benching, and my left shoulder popped out of place while I was doing it at the lower part of the actual exercise, and I did finish another rep. Yeah. I finished that one and another one because I had to, because it was part of my routine. So that's my
not recommended.
That is my stupid story for the moment.
Not recommended
for the moment, because I have a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. So there's obviously purpose needs to be given to how you design each individual workout.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to lay it out. Mm-hmm. So when you do it, before we go on to periodization, is it just because you're going for? I mean, I'm not totally comprehending. It's similar, but I'm not understanding necessarily why you've
the way I've
put them in the order. Yeah, the structure.
Well, so like I said, I would move the hip extensions up higher because it's a larger movement, and it would go along the lines with what you said about putting muscles together, but I put it further down the list.
Which is fine. I'm just not understanding why. That's why I'm asking.
Recovery.
Okay, makes sense. That makes sense to me.
I mean, if you go from doing what you can do personally, on 4 sets of 1 rep max to 6 rep squat for 4 sets, and then you go right into a hip thruster, that's gonna be you're gonna be tired.
Well, you're right, and it will change the weight dynamics.
Absolutely, yeah.
See, for me, I would just, when I'm doing it, and this is again why I wanted to put this in here too, really quick, is I would just do less weight
on the hip extensions.
Yeah, I would.
Well, yeah, you would have to.
Well, right, absolutely, and then I would have, my rest time would be like 90 seconds to 120 to 180 potentially, depending on what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
If I was
between sets,
yeah. If I was going with a 1 to 6 range, I would probably be 2 minutes to 3 minutes between.
Oh yeah, with that much weight, you may have to do that.
Right. At which point, for me, and I am talking on a personal note because this was set up for me, I would be okay with going into these because I would have enough rest. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Because of your current fitness level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that does change
make sense.
Right.
So I let my thought of would this work for a normal person get in the way of will this work for you specifically as Shane? Because as Shane, you could kill it.
Yeah, and that's why I was wondering that. I was just curious.
Yeah. You just wanted a little ego boost there.
No,
you're like, I can handle this. Put them in this order.
Well, no, it's not an ego boost, man. It just proves that I'm stupid. That's the dumb factor that I have in me.
So this is kind of on the micro level.
Yep.
Right? So now we need to think more macro or bigger picture. And when we talk about that, we're talking about how to phase a workout, and we're talking about periodization.
Yeah, and this will go week to week, not just day. This isn't like a day thing. It's more of a week thing.
So the way it's generally set up is you have an entire workout cycle is a mesocycle. Then you have smaller but still big sections within that. Let's say that a mesocycle is 1 year. It doesn't have to be, but we'll say it's about a year. Then a macro cycle is going to be a chunk of other cycles within that. That would be
a mesocycle would be the entire planned out routine.
Yeah.
From start to end.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's.
I'm just trying to give them an idea of a concept of time.
That's why he's throwing out a year, is because a year could be, if your plan is that you want to hit a weight or something in a year period, that's your mesocycle.
Yeah. So we'll say that, and this would be maybe that length of time for someone that needs a lot of time spent in certain phases because they're starting out and in fitness, and they have a lot to go over. You could make a mesocycle a lot smaller. Like a mesocycle for myself or Shane could be
90 days.
Yeah, 90 days, something like that. But if we say that a mesocycle for this particular person is a year, the macro cycles would be, maybe we do 3 4-month macro cycles or 4 3-month macro cycles. And within those macro cycles, you have microcycles. And each week would be a microcycle.
Right.
A microcycle, and you don't have to have these lengths of time. These are just examples. A microcycle could be a day or a single workout.
Sure.
Or it could be 2 to 3 weeks. A macro, like I said, can go from 4 months. It could be 1 month. Those kind of things. It just depends on the person. But you're just looking at it in these chunks. And then each of those chunks or cycles focus on a different thing. So like, my macro cycles, let's say that they're 1 to 3 months. I typically will take someone through a foundation phase where we explore many different aspects of fitness and get a general fitness level established. Flexibility, range of motion, strength, a little bit of endurance, those kind of things, a little bit of performance and agility, and just really focusing on building a small foundation, nothing very intense at all. Then another macro cycle will be focused on hypertrophy, which is muscle cell growth. It will stimulate the metabolism to start burning more calories because you're adding muscle tissue. This would be useful for someone who is suffering from chronic dieting, or they have a very, very slow metabolism, and they just have a problem with storing a lot of body fat. This will help to start building a more long-term healthy metabolism, and obviously adding muscle development.
Gives you a bigger engine.
Yeah. Then once you have a little bit of a foundation with resistance training and hypertrophy, I like to take people through a strength phase. So it's a little more kind of performance oriented. Sometimes you can still see muscle mass gain, but if you're focusing on true strength, it's going to be a lot of performance and just getting better at gross motor movements with more resistance, and you'll still see the metabolic stimulation there. And so those are kind of some examples of some phases that you can go through in terms of what a macro cycle might entail. That's just like Shane was saying earlier, that's a focus. That's a 1 to 3 month focus. I am focusing on hypertrophy. Now, are there many different aspects and things that we can incorporate to get hypertrophy? Yes. And that's what our microcycles would focus on.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm overwhelming. Do you want to talk a little microcycles?
No, you're golden, man. I'll say that it depends. Again, goal focused. It depends on the person. If one goal is going to be better for long term or short term, but a lot of times when I'm using periodization, it's to make it so that you have because a lot of what I do programming wise is more for strength and size, and my thought process is to give them breaks too.
Oh yeah, you definitely.
So
this is a good thing to talk about. Intensity.
Yes. So that's what I'm talking about is intensity.
Yeah, absolutely. A good analogy to use is when you're training an athlete, and I know that a lot of listeners necessarily aren't athletes, but it helps them understand the concept. You can't train at your peak intensity level or your peak performance level all the time. That's why it's a peak, because you have periods where you're in lower levels of intensity and performance.
Right.
If you try to train hard and at your best level of performance all the time, you're going to get into you're going to have chronic fatigue. Your peak is naturally going to drop, so you're going to potentially lose muscle mass, or you will store body fat because your body's under too much stress. And so what you need to do is also, when you're looking at phases and periodizing your workouts, look at phases of intensity as well. Strength phase would be very high intensity because it's a lot of volume. We might be doing 1 rep maxes where we do go as much weight as possible for 1 single rep. And that's very fatiguing on the body and the nervous system and things like that.
Well, right, but see, I'm also doing for the same intensity concept. It's just changed the nature of it. I'm not doing weight right now. I'm doing time. So I have 30-second rests, and I have and I do my exercise at a higher rep range, but so I don't have as much of a break. So the intensity in some ways is higher.
Yeah.
And the volume is going to be higher.
Intensity
sure. Weight volume might be less actually overall, but it's going to be a higher volume.
Well, intensity can be measured by, your heart rate. It can be measured by the lactate buildup in the muscle. It can be measured by volume of weight. It can
Right.
be measured by duration of
Right.
how long you're in the gym,
Right.
frequency of how many weight training sessions you're doing.
Sure.
So there's a lot of ways to measure intensity, but you want to look at those phases and plan breaks, plan periods of rest or periods of lesser intensity for recovery, because it's a concept that a lot of people don't think about. Is they think diet, exercise, they don't think recovery. They think train hard, I'm trying to burn calories, I'm trying to lose weight, I'm trying to build muscle, go hard, go hard, go hard. And they often hit this wall, or people will get adrenal fatigue, or they just won't see the results that they want because their body is overwhelmed. You need to back it off a little bit and have phases specifically laid out where you still do maintenance workouts, or you work on a different thing you switch from maybe a lot of high stress workouts because you're trying to build muscle, or you're burning a lot of calories to burn fat, whatever, and you start focusing on, okay, this phase I'm just going to do 2 weeks of flexibility, range of motion, and get my base of weight training and things like that done, but the intensity is going to drop, and I'm just going to maintain for a little while and work on some performance things.
Well, and a lot of things, and yes, that is a different thing I'm about to say. I'm not changing the subject, but it's based on the same concept. But this is a lot to control overtraining as well. It keeps you from, as you were putting it, you start to burn out. When you were, as you put it again, at your peak performance level all the time, you're going to burn out. That's people that have overtraining issues. That's where overtraining issues usually come from.
Yeah.
Is pushing too hard for too long.
Yep.
And they don't give themselves rest. Recovery is I keep wanting to use the word paramount, and I don't know if that's a good word, but it's one of the biggest.
I think it is.
It's close if it's not the correct word. It's one of the biggest factors for actually getting, if your goal is strength, if your goal is size, if your goal is not that and it's something else, it still comes down to the same thing. If you don't recover, you don't get what your goals are. You can't hit them.
Yeah.
Your recovery time.
Exercise is a stress, and you have to
downtime.
Your body has to have downtime to assess, overcome, or recover and overcome that stress, and that's how you establish a new level of homeostasis or a new stress tolerance level, and that's what your adaptation is.
Yes.
Is your body develops muscle to adapt to the stress, or it cuts body fat to adapt to the stress,
and it does that when it's sleeping.
Yes,
the biggest key is this: if you don't get sleep, your body is not going to recover.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an absolute fact. Mm-hmm. So
that's a whole beast to talk about.
Oh no, and I don't want to bring that into this right now at all. But.
So we've talked about some basic concepts of periodization. You got your mesocycles, macrocycles, microcycles, approximate example timeframes. We've talked about how to structure an individual workout for certain ways. Yep. Is there something else you wanted to cover?
No, I think that's actually pretty good. I know we talked about a few things at the beginning because we wanted to make sure we covered it all, but I think overall we've hit the important details no matter what. So
I think the biggest thing to take away from this concept is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I know that's like kind of a funny little phrase that everyone's already heard, but the thing is, if you don't take the time before you go to the gym, or before you start a new program, or just start trying to be healthier, you're going to feel like you don't have direction. You're not going to know what you're doing in the gym. You're not going to have a purpose. You're not going to know how long it's going to take. And that's what you need to do. You need to sit down. If you have a general idea, write out a plan, or have someone help you write out a plan that knows what they're doing, and understand, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. That's my mesocycle. How much time do I realistically need to accomplish that goal? And then you chunk it into those different phases of, okay, for the first month, I'm only going to focus on this aspect. It maybe I won't burn a lot of calories from that, but what's going to happen is I'm going to, be focusing on that particular aspect of my fitness, which is, well, in my opinion, essential for, building up to my end goal. And start planning these things out based off of realistic, but challenging time frames.
Gosh, you could open just a whole ball right there, so I'm not going to talk. That's something that there's reasoning behind why you use different periodized. If I can't say it right now.
Periodized.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Why you use that in these kind of cycles? There's a lot of reason to lay it out, a specific rep range and a set range in a specific manner, but I don't want to cover that at all. Right now, and that's why I'm just going to shut it back. I'll just go back into quiet land.
So just make sure that you have a plan that you're following, because you can't manage what you don't measure, and track it and
Tracking is
have it
crucial,
phased
in my
out
opinion.
appropriately
Yes.
for what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And utilizing some basic periodization and individual workout structure, like those concepts we talked about.
I do want to say this. Write it down for multiple reasons, because when you go back in time, it will be cool to look and say,
Absolutely.
look how far I've come, look what I used to do, and look what I can do.
Yep.
This is easy now. Back then, I couldn't even do it in my max. This is an amazing journey, and that's another reason why I think you need to write it.
Mm-hmm.
People that go in and wing it in the gym, it's not they're doing anything good or bad. It's just they don't have any kind of direction.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a direction, you stumble into what you are.
Mm-hmm.
So... Anyway,
Cool.
I'll finish that because I'm now drumming and I'm going to stop drumming.
We listened to your suggestions about Shane's drumming in the background, so this will stop.
He's working on it.
All right. So anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Metabolic Radio. Check out our fitness guides at metabolicradio.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Metabolic Radio, and follow us on Instagram at Metabolic Radio, at the Metabolic Seahorse, and at the Metabolic Panda. Metabolic Radio.